Hey there, welcome back. This is the first video from phase 2 of my YouTube channel, and this is where I'm going to start talking about some of the other things that I'm interested in. I do plan to talk about how I created the videos from phase 1, which are all about project management, and I used AI to help me source the visuals that went into those videos. Building a video that explains that is taking a little bit longer than I expected, so I'm not going to let it hold me up. I'm going to move on with some of the other things in phase 2. The first of those is an answer to the question, why is Web3 more secure for a voting website than Web2? So let's get into it. Because Web2 is centralized, anyone can take control of the Web2 resource and manipulate it to whatever extent. Sometimes these manipulations are undetectable, although mostly we see people taking ownership of a domain or a web resource and defacing it. So they are quite often detectable. Further to this, there is typically little transparency within the Web2 world. If the website was running or monitoring a poll, they could claim that there were 200 votes for something when in fact there were only 190. They could simply change this data by manipulating the SQL backend. Now, the tables that are in that SQL database would likely have more than just a counter for votes X, Y, or Z. There would probably be one that was recording where the user was, what IP they had, what time it was. But ultimately, if you can access that database server, you can manipulate any of it. The front end just displays what the back end is telling it. So if the back end has been modified in some way, the front end isn't lying to you. It just doesn't know that it isn't telling the truth anymore. Perhaps there is a place for some kind of middle ground. We could have a Web2 front end, which may be a centralized site and therefore could still be compromised in some way, but it transacts with a blockchain. Therefore, this data is immutable and the transactions are hashed and recorded onto the blockchain. It is almost impossible to manipulate this data. Now, depending on how quickly the blocks are created, which is a whole other thing, it could be completely impossible to manipulate any data that is inside the blockchain. We can further build on this idea with something like an IPFS or interplanetary file system. This is where the front end would also be decentralized, taking control of one node to manipulate the front end so that it no longer accurately reflected what is on the secure blockchain, as with a Web2 front end for a web backend, would be basically impossible, as the rest of the network would not trust a node that no longer has the correct version of the data. The TLDR for this one is that Web2 is not transparent, it is easy to manipulate, it is hard to detect manipulation, whereas Web3 is transparent, it is immutable, and any attempted manipulation is easily detected and untrusted by the rest of the network. Okay, YouTube, well, thank you for watching, and I will catch you on the next video. Hopefully the one where I'm talking about how we created the videos in phase 1. But like I say, that is actually proven to be more of a challenge than I expected.